Well, hello, everybody. This is our special Friday. And so if you're watching this later on, that's great. And we have our guest is Jill, bookstore owner, publisher, writer. She's going to tell us all about all aspects of promotion and getting your book into stores and the hoops and hurdles that you may or may not know about. So take it away.
All right. Thank you. And those that are watching later, thank you. And also, I just wanted to open with kind of what we said earlier is that this can be very overwhelming. There's a lot of information, and sometimes that information leads down one rabbit hole and then it leads down another rabbit hole, just because of where it goes and how it's presented and all of the different nuances that are really involved in this whole ecosystem. I call it an ecosystem. It's the publishing ecosystem, from writing to publishing to distribution to bookseller. And I dabble, more than dabble, in all of them. And I think the one thing that has taught me the most is being a bookseller, because being a bookseller has helped me to understand every single facet of the publishing ecosystem. So what I'd like to chat about today is definitely getting books into bookstores, what it takes, what the bookstores are looking for, what they are expecting, what you can expect, kind of a generalized what you can expect from a typical independent bookstore, what they want to hear, what they don't want to hear, the censored words, the A word, which is Amazon. Bookstores aren't really loving that word too much. And kind of the whole, the hurdle, definitely, of getting your books into bookstores, but more so overcoming that hurdle and how you can go around those hurdles instead of having to really jump them, and in a much easier way. And also, these are things that booksellers typically are not informing authors. And the real problem here, so maybe not a problem, but the real issue here, I think, is that publishers don't understand the degree that it takes to get books into indie bookstores, and they are not educating. And I'm one of those publishers, I know now, but they are not educating their authors on the whole bookstore journey. So I'm going to try to fill in as much as I can. I don't have a PowerPoint. I'm just going to chat, ask questions. I will answer any and all. And then I do have some information that I'll be posting and some templates for some sell sheets. I'll explain what that is. Also, some scripts that you can use when you want to when you're ready to go to the bookstores and talk to the booksellers. And I'll be posting all of those by the end of today in the group. And again, you can reach me anytime. You can email me, you can text me. I'm happy to help any of you at any time and answer any questions that you have that pop up after today. So what I want to talk about today is we'll talk about bookstores. We're going to talk about distribution, because distribution goes hand in hand with a bookstore. And also, I just want to go over the breakdown of cost associated with a book's retail price, because a lot of authors think that, oh, this is, not just authors, it's more so readers, and the general public. They think, well, if you're selling your book for $18.99 or $15.99 or $20.99, you must be making a lot of money if you sold 500 or 600 copies. And that's not the case, because out of that $12.99 or $18.99 or $20.99 or whatever that retail price is, are a lot of people that have to get paid before the author gets paid. So we're going to talk about that as well. We're also going to talk about discounts and why bookstores must have a discount, and why authors must be willing to offer a discount to booksellers, and the difference between direct-to-consumer distribution and selling into bookstores yourself or through distribution. And it does seem like a lot, and it is, but I'm here for any and all of the questions. But maybe I should introduce myself first, because I didn't do that. I'm taking for granted that you all know me, and not the people that may be watching this later. But I'm Jill Cariyle, and I am the owner of a fairly new bookstore in El Paso, Texas. Margin Notes Booksellers. We are a bookstore, coffee shop, and wine bar all in one. It's a really cool concept. And we are really community centered. We really do try to create community. I try my very hardest to put independent authors, self-published authors, as well as indie publishers' titles on my shelves. And that's really what my focus and my main goal is. And those are a lot of the titles that you'll see on my shelves. I'm also a publisher. I've been publishing for about 3 years now. I have 3 imprints, the Empowered Press, which we publish, and I'm a hybrid publisher. We publish nonfiction, Her Voice Publishing. We publish women fiction authors, or those who identify as female. And then we have Empowered Press Authority, which are our disruptors, our influencers, and academia. So that's what I do. And then I've been dabbling in some distribution as well. Okay, so let's get started with getting books into bookstores as a self-published author, as well as a hybrid author or an independently published author, and kind of what that looks like and what the differences are, and how you as an author really need to take control of your marketing and getting your books into bookstores, and why that's so important. So as a self-published author or a hybrid published author, or even an independent published author, if you do not have what we call traditional distribution, you're going to have to work on getting your books into bookstores. And what does that mean? You're going to have a pitch. You're going to have the right printing. You're going to have your books readily available and willing to discount and willing to fulfill any orders that may come through. So for example, I'm just going to give you a hypothetical. When an author comes into my bookstore, I'm an independent bookstore. When an author comes into my bookstore and they say, can I put my book on your shelf? The first thing I say to them is, tell me a little bit about your book. Do you have a copy of your book that you can show me? And what are you offering for your discount? I'm a retailer. I buy my books wholesale. I cannot pay the retail price, because when I turn around to sell them, I'm not going to make any money on them, right? So a lot of authors don't understand that. So when they come in and they ask me if I can put their book on my shelf, here's what they tell me. You can find it on Amazon. And I did the same thing when I was I'm not going to lie. I did the same thing when I was an author, when I was first starting out. And I'll never forget this one bookstore owner who said to me, don't ever call me again. Click. This was in Florida, when I was in Florida. So one of two things happened. I was devastated, humiliated, embarrassed. And well, before she clicked, she said, and don't ever use the Amazon word with an independent bookseller, ever. Click. And I think what I told her, it wasn't that go to Amazon and buy my books. It was, I'm an Amazon bestseller. And she goes, if you're an Amazon bestseller, you're doing just fine on Amazon. I can't compete with Amazon. Click. Don't call me again. So I learned a lot from that. Number one, I learned that I never wanted to treat any other author that way. Number two, I learned that Amazon is the biggest competitor for independent bookstores. And what I can tell you is that independent booksellers, even Barnes and Noble, at this point, none of us can compete with Amazon at this point. None of us. And so Amazon is really doing its best to put us out of business, and we just can't compete. So what do we have to do? How do we get people in our bookstore to buy our books? Well, we create community. We hold events. We really rely on our independent authors and our self-published authors to help promote. So that's kind of from the bookseller standpoint. So when you go into a bookstore, the things that you want to have readily available is an elevator pitch. You got to know what your book is about. You've got to be able to sell that book to that bookseller in about 30 seconds or 15 seconds, really. Because honestly, I don't have time to stand at the front and listen to somebody talk to me for 45 minutes about their book. I would love to. I don't have time. And yes, now I'm on that other side and I understand it now. And my girls, my team, They don't have time. They don't, they're just like, okay, because we have other clients coming in, customers. So walk in, you want to have your 15-second to 30-second elevator pitch. You want to have a copy, one or more copies readily available for the bookseller to look at. And we'll talk about why in just a second. And you need to be firm on what your discount is. And you need to know what a distributor is, what a distributor does, and if you have one. Amazon is a distributor, but it's not a distributor that a bookseller wants or can purchase from. So you need to know who your distributor is. Are you the distributor? Is your publisher the distributor? Where can that bookseller go and find your books and buy a bulk amount of books? A couple of things. Ingram Spark can be your distributor. You can still use them as a self-published author on print on demand, as long as you have set up a discount, because Ingram Spark works with Ingram. So for example, I have an account, a wholesaler account with Ingram. I go to Ingram and I get a 40 to 42% discount as a bookseller, a 40 to 42% discount on every book that I buy. A lot of independent booksellers, or I'm sorry, a lot of self-published authors who have set up on Ingram Spark will tell me, I'm on Ingram Spark, you can find my book. I go to Ingram Spark, sure, I can find their book, but there's no discount, right? Or the discount is 25%, or the discount is 30%, and I am not interested in that. As a bookseller, I'm interested in 40 to 42%, because look at the margins there, the profit margins for my bookstore. So that's a really important piece of information to know. Who your distributor is. If it's Ingram Spark, have you made sure that you have at least a 40% discount? Heck, if you have a 50% discount, that's even better. But I understand it's a self-published author. That's not as easy to do, right? Or you've got another option. Are you direct to consumer? I will be very honest with you, and Barbara knows this. We have dealt with this with her book. We know the way that she's going to make the most amount of money is by direct to consumer. You can still be direct to consumer and get into bookstores. It's a business. You have to look at it as a business. But if you're direct to consumer and you want to sell, like I just had an author come in a couple days ago, she has a children's book and she doesn't have any distribution on it. And I said, well, I don't know how to purchase this book from you. She says, well, how about direct to consumer? I said, that's fine. Let's talk about that. What are you willing to discount that book for me? If you do that, then you have to have a print run. You no longer can be print on demand. But here's where it gets kind of weird, right? If you are on Ingram Spark, and as long as you have that discount in that the bookstore is going to be interested in, which is going to be a 40 to 42% discount, and the bookstore can find it easily, and Ingram Spark, and so like I said, there's rabbit holes, I swear, at every turn. There's always an exception to everything. And the bookseller can go to Ingram Spark, and I'm going to share with you, I'm actually going to share my screen with you and show you what Ingram looks like. I think that's a really smart thing to do. I think it will be very helpful for you all to see exactly what a bookseller sees when we go to Ingram. And I want you to see and if you don't mind me showing them because you're print on demand, correct? Yeah. So I would like to share with you when I go to buy Tim's book, what that looks like. When I go to buy.
Actually, which one? I think Joe the Salamander is Ingram, and some of the others are print on demand. Yeah.
So did your publisher do a print run?
A very small one, I believe.
Okay, that's why there's some in the warehouse. Yeah. So here's the thing with Ingram and Ingram Spark. When you sign up for print on demand through Ingram Spark, yes, you're in Ingram. And I'll show you in a minute. So what happens is if you have a print run and your books are warehoused either through your publisher, which I do that with all of my authors, I house their books and distribute them. And if you've got a print run and you've done, let's say 2,000 or 1,000 and they're warehoused or with Ingram or with your distributor, it's going to show that there's plenty. With print on demand, it's really going to depend. It's a supply and demand type of thing, right? So if Ingram sees, like, let's say you had a really good launch and you sold lots of books, right out of the gate, Ingram will probably print 10 to 50 copies of books. If not, they're not going to house that book in their warehouse. So it really is a print on demand. And then that usually takes the bookseller a lot longer to get the books. So when you're looking at print on demand versus a short print run, which is honestly another meeting for us that I could go into, you've got to really think about what you're selling, who you're going to sell to, what your discount's going to be. That's if you're having it distributed through Ingram Spark, or if you want booksellers to be able to purchase it through Ingram Spark. It's a really catch-22 situation. And but what I'd like to do in just a second is show you what it looks like to a bookseller. So we're going to do that in just a second. The other thing, when you walk into a bookstore, they want to know distribution, what your discount is, and how fast can they get their books. The other thing that the bookseller is going to ask you, who's your audience? How are you going to market this book? And how will I know that this book is going to sell? Because it is not the publisher's job. It is not the bookseller's job to market your book. The publisher, it is to an extent, and I will show you what that extent is, but it is the author's responsibility to market the book. So if you want to get into a bookstore, I would highly recommend to start in your region and do the research. Like, do the research on the bookstore. What types of titles do they sell? Who are their customers? If you've got a book like Joe the Salamander, I talk it up all the time. We've got a huge community of young people. We've also got a huge autism community here. And I'm bringing more books in for those diverse titles. I've got another children's book that I just brought in from a self-published author, and I plan on taking Joe the Salamander and also this children's book and really pushing it. So what I'm trying to say is the bookseller, like, I know I'll be able to sell those books. I'll be able to sell those books because I know what my audience is. I know who my customers are. So do the research, make the phone calls to the bookstores, ask them, are you interested? Here's my title. Here's what my book is about. I think it would fit in your repertoire. I think it would do well here. You want to make sure that the bookstore is that your title is going to fit there. So there's a lot of things to look at there. So you want to make sure that you're doing research on your bookstores. Let's talk about Barnes and Noble quickly, and let's talk about Walmart, Target, and the big box stores and how that works and what that looks like for a self-published author or a hybrid published author or an independently published author. And I speak from going through most of this myself as a self-published author before I was a publisher. And everybody, I want to be in Barnes and Noble. That's going to be so cool to see my book in Barnes and Noble. Oh my God, I want to get into Walmart. Wait a minute, I want to also get into Target. So number one, the big box stores. To get your books on those shelves is very, very difficult as a self-published author. It's really difficult for me to get my authors into Walmart and Target on Target bookshelves. And Costco's the same. When you've got big box stores like that, they want major discounts. And you've got to be able to provide in volume. Because at the end of the day, this business of publishing is about volume. Print on demand is great if you are, digital online, but if you want to get into the big box stores, you're going to have a connection with a traditional distributor that distributes into these big box stores. And you're going to make maybe, this is not a quote, but you're going to maybe make 25 cents or less, because those big box stores are asking for discounts and they want volume. So number one, highly discounted. Number two, you've got to have a print run of anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 at the very least. And you have to be willing to accept returns. And I will tell you that this, from experience with my own authors, and I'm going to give you an example. One of my first authors, you all probably know Tim, you know Madeline. She was in our group a couple years ago. So she's one of my authors. And when we published her first book, nonfiction book, it sold over 2,000 copies in 30 days. Ingram went crazy. They were like, we want another 50. Oh my God, we want another 1,500 copies. Madeline and I are like, get the champagne. Look at what we're doing. We send out those 1,500 copies. The distributor, we all hold for reserves, right? We have to hold 20% of that for reserves, return reserves. And what happened 30 days later when the book started to go, because all of the friends and family and everybody we know bought their copies and no bookstores wanted it. There were no sales. Ingram returned 1,100 copies. And that was awful. So it was painful, but that's what happens. So that's another thing, honestly, that a bookstore is looking for, along with discount, distribution. They're also making sure that you will allow them to return your book. In the publishing and distribution world, that is called, when we sell into a bookstore as a publisher or a distributor, that is called a soft sale. It's a soft sale, which also is why traditionally distributed or traditionally published, independently published authors only typically get payouts on royalties. Tim, I don't know what your structure is, but usually it's twice a year. I'm not trying to be nosy, but is that what yours is?
Depends. Some is
Okay.
by quarter, some is
Right.
once a year, but
Yeah. And that's exactly why it's quarter or year or twice a year. Because as a publisher, we have to make sure that we're getting paid and that we don't have to then ask money back from the author if the returns come in. So that's why there's such a lag in payment. And I learned that the hard way as a publisher. I learned the hard way. Sometimes our lessons are learned the hard way, and that's okay. And I'm sorry if I'm going all over the place, but I'm trying not to, but this is kind of how this business works anyway. So we talked about distribution, we've talked about discounts, we've talked about knowing what your pitch is when you go into the bookstore. We've talked a little bit about when you go into that bookstore, don't talk about Amazon. The bookseller may ask.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you have any experience with Lulu as a distributor? Because to get one of my books through Ingram, I had to do a separate thing through Lulu, and then Ingram picked up from Lulu while the A Word did not. But the problem with that is the Lulu price was $5 or $6 more expensive than
Yes.
the Amazon price.
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of experience with Lulu as a bookseller. I do have some experience with Lulu as a publisher, and that is that they do price high because of all the fees that they have to take out so that everybody, but you can only you can outprice a book, right? I mean, in the public just won't purchase it. They just won't. So Lulu does price their books higher because of, I think, all the fees. And I don't know all the fees, Tim. And I don't know. And so here's what I think about that, only because, and I'm going to talk about Ingram in just a minute, and being a publisher and a distributor with Ingram and what they expect discount wise. So I think Ingram and Lulu have an agreement, and Ingram is probably charging Lulu a 60% discount for the books. And so that's why Lulu is raising the price of the books so that they can make a little more money. And then hopefully the author's making a tad bit more, but I don't know. So for example, as a publisher and a distributor, for me to have a direct relationship with Ingram. Does everybody know what Ingram is? Does everybody know? Like, I want to make sure that everybody knows what Ingram is. Ingram is the god of wholesalers. Like, they're the number one wholesaler. They're the go-to for every bookstore is Ingram. Ingram is a huge conglomerate, and there are little pockets of Ingram. So you've got Ingram Content Group, you've got Ingram Distribution, and you've got Ingram Spark. Ingram Spark is for self-published authors. So when I talk about Ingram as a whole, I talk about them as my wholesaler from the bookstore side. They're also the middleman for my publisher side. So as a publisher, if I want to have a relationship with Ingram so that they help to distribute my books, they require a 60% discount. So let's use Barbara's book as an example. Barbara's book is priced at $12.99. So if I sell to Ingram for Ingram to house those books and distribute those books, Ingram makes me give them a 60% discount. They do that with all publishers, all distributors, a 60% discount, which then they give booksellers a 40% discount. So they make that 10%, right? I can't afford that. Like, I can't, it would leave nothing for my authors at the end of the day. Because if I'm giving a 60% discount off that retail price, that's 60% off that $12.99 right there. And then there's, the print cost. And then there's the publisher. I only take 25%, but there's really nothing left at the end of the day. So for me and my books, it's too expensive. And that's what I've been running into as a publisher with all of my distributors, is that the distribution fees are so incredibly high that for small publishers, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. So that's kind of what's happening there. So that's the Ingram game. That's the game that Ingram plays with publishers and distributors. And that's why there's.
I'm sorry, I got a question.
That's fine.
So, and I really very much appreciate your mapping out this ecosystem, which is unfriendly to authors of this. So how do you negotiate? How do you deal? I mean, how do you deal with this obstacle course, knowing that there are booby traps all the way around?
There are booby traps, yes. And that's a great question. So as a publisher, not even as a bookseller, if I'm speaking to you now as a publisher, which we all go hand in hand, I'm going to show you what I've done. And a lot of publishers are doing the same thing. So as a publisher, I am now distributing my author's books, and I'm going to show you how I do that. And I'm going to show you what I do when I go to the bookstores for my authors. And this is something that as self-published authors, if you're willing to do, you can do the same thing. And I'm going to show you the whole formula. I'm going to give you all the templates so that you all can do this and that at least you know. So now publishers, because distributors take so much, publishers are a lot of publishers and even the big fives, like HarperCollins, I deal face-to-face with HarperCollins. I deal face-to-face with Simon & Schuster as a bookseller because they give me more of a discount than Ingram. So publishers are now going to the booksellers and saying, you can order straight from us, and I'm going to give you a 50 to 52% discount, depending upon the bulk. And I'm going to show you as a publisher what that looks like, what we do. So I'm sorry I'm jumping from publisher to bookseller, but I think it's really important for everybody to know how this works. So this is my publisher, wherever it is. This is my publisher website. On my publisher website, I have every one of my authors here, and I've created a catalog. So you can buy, as a consumer, you can buy direct from my authors, or like Shuna, we'll use Shuna. So we've got her book here. This is specifically for consumers, right? This is for consumers. Bookstores, I call on bookstores. I have a team that calls on bookstores, and we have what we call a buyer portal. And they know where to go. They go to the buyer portal. I highly recommend you doing this if you have a website, doing this on your own website. This will impress the hell out of a bookstore. You go to the buyer portal. They have a password. They go in, and we welcome our booksellers, blah, 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 blah. Sorry, I'm trying to get this out of the way here. And we have a full catalog here. We have all of our books, all of our authors, all of our imprints separated. They can go in, they can look at the titles, they can look at, see what's on pre-order, or they can they can do a request for bulk order. The request for bulk order says, we offer a 48% discount on orders of 10 or more empowered press and imprint titles. For a 50% discount, purchase at least 10 pre-sale books or at least 50 current front or back listed books. And it comes straight to our order portal, and we fill the order. But it helps us also build relationships with these booksellers, and that is really important for my authors and for me as a publisher, is to build these relationships. I highly recommend, this is something I would teach any self-published author to do, because I think it's worth it. You put something together and you offer a discount. Now you can go to our catalog, and our catalog has each author's individual sell sheet. A sell sheet is what you as an author want to have prepared. And this is what I'm going to provide this template for you all. Go through the catalog. Each author has a sell sheet. That sell sheet doesn't have to look just like this. You can change it around. You can make it look however you want, but it has to have pertinent information. It has to have the ISBN, the retail price, paperback or hardcover, what's the trim size, how many pages, genre, when was it published, who was the imprint, how to order. This is my my general manager, so she handles all the orders. Our contact information, information on the author.
A quick question.
Yeah.
Just some definitions, syntax. So they'll come in, the bookstore will come in and buy 50 books. So if they buy 50 books and they sell 25, they bought them in the real world, buying means you've got it, you own it. But in this world, do they return 25?
They could. We make all of our titles available to return, yes. Most of the time though, Tim, they're not buying 50 copies. Most of the time they're buying 10, they're buying 30, they're buying 20. 50 is a lot. I've had only a few bookstores purchase 50 copies. Just now, I will tell you, if the books sell, they're coming back for more. But what I try to do is give them an initiative to buy more, you know, a larger discount. And a lot of times the bookstores are going to ask, you know, what is the marketing plan for this? You know, if I buy 50 books, what's the marketing plan? So where I will sell 50, you know, 30 to 50 copies is regionally. So if the author is, you know, in the author's region, right? So if the author is a local author, they're more willing to do that. Or they'll do 50 copies or 30 copies if the author's coming in to do a signing or something like that. But very, very, very few. I've sold very few times, 50 copies. So yeah, so these are the sell sheets. This is the catalog, and these are our front and back lists. You know, we're a very small publishing company, and we do cater to every single one of our authors big time. We try as much as we can. Again, we're publishers, not publicists, but it is worth it to us to get these books on the shelves. And your publisher should feel the same. You should be with a publisher that cares as much about your book as you do. And a lot of times in the big, even larger independent presses, they just don't have that connection with the authors that I have with mine. So this is the catalog that I do. Now I want to kind of share a case study with you that I've been doing, and it's been working. So this is an author, Lainey Oslin, who has written a lyrical memoir. She got a print run of 2,000. We have been selling it into stores, but she has, you know, she has an audience of followers on Instagram of over 13,000, and they love her work. And she's been working at this for a year, and she is going on a book tour. But it's on the weekends, but she's doing it regionally, right? So she, you know, she's really been pushing, but we've gotten good reviews. Our pre-sales, just direct to consumer, has been over, I think we sold 1,500 or more books in the pre-sale, just literally direct to consumer. That didn't have anything to do with like Amazon. We didn't sell it. We didn't do it for pre-order on Amazon. It was just publisher and author working kind of hand in hand for the pre-orders. And she has a huge following. But I will tell you that she works at it every day, every single day, which can be overwhelming, right? I mean, that's an overwhelming, sometimes not doable thing for people.
Now, with all this information, can an author bypass Amazon completely? Is it still important to have something on Amazon, or can you just be like, F you, Amazon, we're going to go through bookstores, we're going to do direct to consumer?
Thank you for bringing that up, because it was something I was going to bring up, but I was going to wait till the end because nobody really wants to hear what I have to say about Amazon, because Amazon is such a, like, the thing, right? So I'm really, really happy you brought that up. I have said F Amazon for my books. Lainey is saying F Amazon for her books. Madeline is F Amazon for her books. I am pulling Finding 50 off of Amazon because I'm selling them like wildfire in my store. I mean, it's my store. People want to buy the book. They want it, whatever. But you know, I want to say it's really a hard call, Tim, especially if you are POD, right? Because if you're not POD, if you're not print on demand, and you want to go that route, you're gonna have to invest in a print run. You're gonna have to invest in a print run. I don't want anything to do with Amazon anymore. And most of that reason is because I'm a bookseller. And I'm going to tell you something else that happens to booksellers. People walk in our bookstore and they take pictures of books. They go home and they buy them from Amazon. So when you walk into a bookstore and I ask some, or when someone walks into a bookstore, I say, are you on Amazon? And they're an unknown author and they're a self-published author. And I say to them, and they say, oh yes, I'm on Amazon and I'm selling a lot. I'm like, I can't compete with that. I'm sorry.
Sounds like the person who hung up on you, I mean, obviously you're much nicer than this woman, right? But
Yeah.
it sounds like the very same situation, unfortunately, that, this is a behemoth. You
Yeah.
can't deny their existence, but they cast a baleful eye from their, from heaven, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like Joe's initial run did really, really well, sold a ton of books. So Amazon and warehouses picked it up. Amazon ordered a bunch for their warehouses, but when, as you said, couple months go by and this happens, suddenly my book's on Amazon for $5.99. No one can compete with that.
No, we can't. And so I think, Tim, we really are at a crossroads here with Amazon. And I think that I think that this is just a conversation that needs to happen with authors and booksellers together. And I think the conversation is you have to decide what you want to do with your book, because remember when it was all the rage, when we said, let's do the ARC teams, let's get them to go, Tim, we've been on how many ARC teams, right? Right? I mean, over the last 2 years, how many ARC teams have we been on? I can't count. And what
Is an art
happened?
team? What is an art team?
Advanced reader. Go ahead, Tim.
It's an advanced reader team. So what happens is you have everything aligned, a whole bunch of readers that are willing to support you. And then you mark down like the Kindle book on Amazon to like 99 cents. And on day one, or when the pre-sale is announced a week before release, suddenly there's a couple of hundred sales. Amazon starts to promote it as a #1 in various categories. The author says it's #1 in various categories. It tricks Ingram and also tricks Amazon distribution to order more books. And, it's a lot of it is just you can make that announcement. You end up selling more books by announcing it. It's a #1 bestseller other places, but you want to actually transfer those sales once you have that title from Amazon to the other places.
Right. And so I don't, it's that, it's exactly that. And but Amazon is also caught on. So they're catching on to this. And what I'm seeing now is like, remember when we could put them in 10 categories, Tim? You could put the books in 10 categories. And they were obscure categories, as long as they sort of fit in the category. But what happens is it gives false hope. It gives false hope to the author. It gives false hope to the readers. And the other thing that's happening with Amazon is that there's so many books being uploaded every single day to Amazon that now they're wanting you to buy ads for your book. So the algorithm isn't even doing what it used to do. So honestly, in the last 2 to 3 years, I mean, I think, Tim, when we were doing this early on, like 2 or 3 years ago when we were starting this, I think it was really working. It was great, right? It was great. But at the end of the day, it's a false narrative, so to speak.
Can I ask you a question? You used to be a marketer, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but when you said
That's fine.
something very, very important there, that, as you say, how do you deal with this monster of Amazon? So, do you have numbers on how many books are being uploaded to Amazon every day?
I
And
used to
is that such a staggering number that just goes beyond people's ability to just beyond my bandwidth? I can't even think about that. So of course I'm going to support an independent bookseller. Duh. I'm going to go to my local bookstore because I'm talking to a human being who knows what I want. I mean, I'm obviously, I look who I'm talking to. I know who know this, right? I know that.
It's so true, but I love to hear that, though. I love to hear that from you, because that is, the flip side of all this, Eric, really is from a bookseller side. I'm selling books, y'all. I'm selling books. The
Does
first,
bookshop.org, does that actually support the indie bookstores?
yes.
Good, good.
Yes, it has to be a brick and mortar store. And I'm getting so as a brick and mortar, so we go through the ABA, which is the American Booksellers Association. And unless you are a brick and mortar store, you can't have bookshop.org. But as an indie store, people can, and you can, it's a process as a bookstore to get it, but we can get it. And we're just about to have it on our website. It does help. You can get your book sent right to you. It's not Amazon prices, but it does help the indie bookstore. So I make, as a bookstore, 30% of the retail price. If someone goes to
Right.
my, right, online. So this is, we're putting it in place, but you have to be a brick and mortar store. You can't be pop-up. You can't like sell out of your garage and then be on books. So it has to be a brick and mortar store.
How do you break through that Amazon, oh, is this cheap, the compulsive buyer? I guess you're not going to find a compulsive buyer, but to give the buyer, who cares, the
Mhm.
self-satisfaction of buying from you,
Mhm.
right? I'm saying, I did something good. Yeah, I can live with myself rather than just, right? So maybe this is not the time for this conversation.
No, it's perfect.
Okay.
It's perfect. Perfect time. I create community. It's about it's like you said, Eric, like you want to go support the bookstores, you go in there, you talk to the booksellers, you talk to the team. And honestly, that's what it's all about. Like, and so as a bookseller, I'm creating events. I'm creating a space that's safe. I'm creating a space that's welcoming. Come in, get a mocktail, get a coffee, hell, get a wine. We have a wine bar too. If you drink, if that's your thing. If not, we have something, what I've created here and what most booksellers are trying to do. I mean, I have a very different bookstore. I have something that is what I've tried to do with my bookstore is I've tried to create a space of comfort. Come in, grab a coffee and shop. And they've got that comforting coffee or that comforting juice or that comforting wine, so to speak. And they'll spend an hour in my bookstore looking at books. So it's a psychological thing too, but it's a connection with the community. We do open mic nights. We have, we have book clubs. We have wine clubs. We've got mystery theater things. We've got everything to
Trivia
get,
nights and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, I mean, we've got things to pull this community in. And when they come, they see what we're doing. And for the most part, I'm selling books. The first day I was open, I sold $2,000 worth of books. People are buying books, but it's about connection because what I'm finding is people that do come to bookstores, they're sick of Amazon. They're sick of clicking buttons. They're sick of it. Now, there's nothing better than book mail. We all know that, right? Well, I think there is. You go to the store, you get a book in your hand, and you go home and you read it, and you've got that in your hand. It's tangible.
And Carrie Fisher said, immediate gratification is not fast enough. So,
Right,
uh,
right, right.
I want the book in my hand yesterday, right?
The
But
other,
that's not, of course, what you're about. What you're about is something that's going to be lasting
yeah,
for grown-up people. Um, and I salute you. Is El Paso, does it have a literary scene? Yeah, I mean,
it does. You wouldn't even believe it, but it does. Has a huge literary scene, huge. Well, we have artists here. There's artists, like people. People think this is the armpit of Texas, and they can think that all they want. But there's a culture here and a diversity. We're right on the border, and I know that I don't want to get into that, but there's a culture here that the people that want culture, they want to read. I mean, we have a lot of Hispanic, we have a lot of we have a lot of Spanish books. We have things that people want to read. They're dying to get their hands on things. We bring children in, we bring tweens in, teens. Let's read. We're all about literacy, and that's what
you do outreach to schools as well.
we are going to be outreaching to schools next year or in this next coming school year. But if you can find, and most independent bookstores are about community. And this is why, as authors, to be able to walk into a store and make that connection with that bookseller who's already trying to make a connection with the community, they're going to fall in love with you. If you have the things that you need to have and you know your stuff and you walk in there and you're confident and you say, I've got a book that I know would fit in your bookstore. Here's what I have. And you have all the tools, and I'm going to give you all the tools that I possibly can, that I know that I'm looking for. I did want to add one other thing before I show you guys Ingram, because I do want to show you Ingram real quick, because I think that's really important. The other 5 minutes, I know I'm hurrying. I promise, Tim, I promise. The other thing is a lot of bookstores will do consignment. I'm also going to post, it'll probably be tomorrow, but I'm going to post what I do for consignment. when an author says, will you go on consignment? Yes, I will. A lot of bookstores will, but they do have a fee. Typically it's $25 to shelve the books. They'll take 5, it's consignment. They take 40%. They write a check for you at the end of the month for whatever they sold for 60% of that book. Okay, boom. 3 more minutes. I promised Tim I'm not going to go over. Give me a minute. I just want to show y'all what Ingram looks like on my side so that
May I
you
ask a quick question while you do that?
absolutely.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for doing this. Secondly, I went to high school in Las Cruces, so it's nice to talk to
No,
somebody from the area. Yeah,
did you? That's
I went to
cool.
Mayfield High School. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
uh, you had started to say something about if a independent bookseller asks you on the phone, you don't offer that I'm on Amazon, but what if they ask you?
You got to tell them. Yeah, because they might. Um, they more than likely they will. And this is why I think Tim's question was really great, because I think that this is a decision that you as an author are going to have to make. I'm not saying that every bookstore is going to say no, but I mean, because we all know that independent self-published authors, that's a great hub for them. It's a good hub. But I think that what's happening is that you're going to have to come up with something that even if you are on Amazon, that you can sell them by connecting with them. So if you are on Amazon, I would skip the phone call. I would go straight to the bookstore and make that connection.
Gotcha.
You have to leave.
And I lived in Las Cruces for a while.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Jim.
did you really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on.
Oh, no, you're fine.
This is going to be great. I have to leave in a few minutes, and Tim and or Jill, if you could just post those links or get them to me, I can leave you my email.
You got it. No problem at all. Okay. So I want you guys to see Tim's book. When I go in to order, can everybody see? This is what Ingram looks like. We use we use iPage. Booksellers do. So over here, so you see all of these, the BISAC codes, you've got the trim size, how many comes in a carton. So if I purchase a carton, I'm going to get 28 of his books. It has the reviews, and his publisher this is the metadata here, right? So the publisher is responsible for the metadata. All of this, right? Then what the bookseller is looking for over here is these are my 2 primary warehouses. Every bookseller has their primary warehouses. Ingram's got warehouses all over the United States. These are my 2 primary, Oregon and Tennessee. Because this is a print on demand, I do see that in Tennessee, there are 80 on hand. So Tim, you've got 80 on hand in Ingram right now. So you must be selling on that side of the United States. That's what this tells me. You had 50 here, I think, the last time I looked, because when I got Joe, I got him from the Oregon. It got to me quickly. So it's my secondary, let's say I wanted to order 20 more of Tim's books, or let's say I wanted to order a carton, it would come out of this and it would take a little bit longer because it was coming from Tennessee, because that's my secondary. But that's what we're looking for. The other thing that I do as a bookseller, because I can't carry every book, I do offer the service of going to Ingram and ordering it from Ingram like that. And they will purchase it from me before they purchase from Amazon, because I've made that connection with them.
So in this example of this wonderful, great book, I'm wondering, there's no discount, right? It says discount regular. What does that
That's
mean?
right. No, that means I'm getting a 40% discount.
So 40% off 1995.
Yes. Yep.
That's no, oh,
Yep.
that's okay.
So I get a bookseller, we know that regular means 40%. If it's anything else, it'll say 42 or 30 or 25. We run from 25, but we do. But so your publisher did do it right. Like your publisher did it right. So I'll keep buying them.
Jill, this has been fantastic, and you were a really wonderful presenter. Trying to keep up with everything. I'm going to want to follow up with you. Cheers to everybody. I've got to have to go.
Thank you, Eric.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Ray. And Bye.
Okay, so I will end my presentation there. There's so much more we could talk about. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna post just some more information. I'm gonna post my presentation guides that I have with some additional information. I'm gonna also post my breakdown of costs associated with a book's retail price so that everybody understands how that works and where the money goes and who's taking what part of the money, and you'll understand some of the language around it as well. I will also post a sell sheet and a sell sheet template so that you know how to create one yourself. And I truly believe that as self-published authors, if you're willing to do the work, you can get your books into bookstores. You've got to make the commitment, you've got to make the connection, and you've got to have something, you've got to go do this in person and show them that you're available. Do book signings, do author readings, anything. Offer this to the bookseller, and the bookseller will love you forever.
Okay.
And do it regionally first.
Jill, thank you so much. What a
You are
really
welcome.
wonderful and helpful and informative presentation.
Wonderful. I'm happy to help anytime.
Thank you so much, Joe. That was
Absolutely.
awesome.
Thank you very much. And don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here for anything.
Okay.